We're going to be in, of course, finishing up the book of Numbers, chapter 21 this morning, and a chapter that's rich in history, like a lot of chapters in the book of Numbers, rich in history. A lot of high points are hit, and yet when we get into the book of Joshua and Deuteronomy, we're going to go back through some of this in more detail, some of these battles. But right now, Moses is giving a pretty good overview of the children of Israel starting to go over into and to take the promised land. Of course, they've incurred some problems along the way. We know they asked the Edomites to allow them to pass through without any combative motive, and the king of Edom refused. So we're going to find this in several occasions where they refused passage, so really they're going to have to go in there and take it by battle, okay? And we don't want to get too detailed in this as far as these different cities are taken and things like this, because we'll be covering it more in the future. We know last week we talked about the people and the murmuring and complaining, which is not an unusual form. This morning we were talking about that, and maybe we should ask the question, Greg, when did they murmur and complain? It would be easier maybe to ask the question, when didn't they not murmur and complain? Okay, so, and he sent the fiery serpent, and we spent a pretty good length of time talking about the fiery serpents. We talked about how Jesus even referred to it as the brazen serpent that was lifted up for them to look upon, that they would be healed. And he used that as an analogy in his life about that fiery serpent, and we're not going to go back into that because, like I said, we spent a good bit of time on it. Spent a good bit of time on Numbers chapter 21 and verse 14, where it talks about things that are written in the book of the war of the Lord. We talked about that. There are some books that's referred to in the old Bible that we do not have, and that we really don't know what they consisted of, and we talked about that. You find references to the book of Jashar and Joshua, and also in the book of Samuel. Seems to tie back into this book of the Law of the Lords, okay? And so I think Greg closed that discussion that we were having out with these passages of Scripture. John chapter 20, John said, that there are many other signs, verse 30, truly that Jesus did in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written that ye might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, that believing ye might have life through his name. So are there other things that Jesus did that are not recorded? Yes. Did Jesus operate, though, out from any principle or guideline or thought that God set down? No. So if someone comes up, hey, we found this book here, here's some other things Jesus did, and you begin to look at it, and you find out, hey, wait a minute, it's not consistent within the perimeters of what Jesus operated in. So will it be a book that we need to pay attention to? No. Also, we find that John said in John chapter 21, verse 25, and there are also many other things which Jesus did, the which if they should be written every one, I suppose that not even the world itself could contain the books that should be written. So we find there are a lot of work. But what we have, John said, is enough to give us what? Faith. To believe those things that are written. And so it is here with this. Other books being referred to, God saw fit that we didn't need them. Did they operate outside the perimeter of what God has in his program? No. If someone says, we found this book and it's got God teaching some strange thing not consistent with the old Bible or the old law, talking about people that were doing things not consistent with the way the prophets operated, guess what you got? A false teacher had. Okay? And I refer to this a lot because I had a good bit of dealings with a Mormon, was considered a friend of mine, and he was always talking about another book. Okay? So they do teach that the Book of Mormon is another will and testament of Jesus Christ. And don't know if you've ever tried to read it. It's kind of interesting in trying to read it. It's like a lot of things. It's not consistent with what we have laid down in God's Word. You have another angel, Moroni, appearing unto Joseph Smith in the mountain range of New York, where he found these golden plates. And he was told to, when you translate something and all like that, and what's translated and all this, it's not consistent with anything in the New Testament. But that's what it's talking about here. So if anybody comes up and says, hey, we found this lost book and it says this, that, and the other, this is what we need to go by. Well, if it's not consistent with what we have laid down, or it does not operate in the perimeters of what's laid down, then we don't need it, okay? Somebody's showing cards, Daniel, that they ain't played it yet, okay? So anyway, any of you, brother, have any comments on that? I think we spent a good bit of time on that last week, so. Okay. Numbers chapter 21, and what we're going to do this morning is kind of like what we did. We kind of did a review because, and keep our minds fresh, what is going on here? Where is all this happening? Who are these people, okay? And we have gone through that before, and I'm going to put this map back up, and I'm going to kind of go back through it real briefly at who these people are. If our screen was a little bigger, I would have blown it up a little bigger. For those viewing on the YouTube and all, I might step away from the podium for just a minute and use the pointer so I can show the class what we're going on here. Who these people are. Well, who are these people? This map right here shows us what is referred to generically as the land of Canaan, okay? The conquest that's going to go on with these people in this realm. Technically, if you want to boil it down, the land of Canaan itself is this fertile area right in here, okay? Generically, we call this outline here, but what we're going to find as things unfold, most of the work of Jesus, his disciples and all are going to take place right here around the Dead Sea, the Sea of Galilee, up in Nazareth, and places like that, okay? He once or twice does cross the River Jordan and go over onto the east side, but the primary work is going to be in that fertile crescent that's over there. And I had to write this down this morning because my mind is not as sharp as it used to be. So down here we have, and we've talked about, the Amalekites or Amalek. So who are these people here? Well, this was the son of Esau's son, Eliphaz, okay? These were the people that when the children of Israel first left Egypt, what happened? They attacked the hindmost part, okay? So these are some of the descendants of Esau. Well, who are the Edomites? Here again, these are some of the descendants of Esau. So this was a land that they dwelt in this area here, okay? So as we come up the east side of Jordan, we find Moab, the land of Moab. And this land is named after Lot's daughter. His oldest daughter had a son named Moab. So these are the Moabites, okay? These are Lot's people. And then when you get up here, the Ammon, if you go back there and look, Ammon, I think is the way I was told to pronounce it. I can't remember exactly. Anyway, Ammon, these are the people and descendants of Lot's youngest daughter, okay, when they left out of Sodom, okay? And so when we get over here in this right here, we see this area, a large area right here that's shaded in this, I don't know what color that is, but where I got my pointer, you see the name Sihon, Og, and the Amorites are Aram. Now, who are those people? Well, when we look at these people, they are considered part of the Canaanites, okay? The descendants of, part of the descendants of Canaan. When we get in here, what's called the land of Canaan, these people right in the blue here, the light blue, these are considered part of the Canaanites. More the hardcore part of it's in here, okay? The land of Canaan. You come right here, this Sihon here that's mentioned is a king, okay? This land of the Amorites was a pretty good-sized landmass, okay? And so you had Sion was a king down in the south. In the middle part of it, you had King Og of the Amorites. And up here you had the king in the north, Aram. So it's kind of divided up into three sections when you look at it. And of course, on most all maps, it shows you Philistia and Phoenicia. Well, who are these people? It seems as though they identified themselves with the Canaanites. These people were seafarers, okay? These people had a lot to do with the sea, and it is thought from what we know about them historically, they're from the part of southern Europe up around where the Aegean Sea is at, and they intermarried with the Canaanites, okay? That's why when you get over in some parts of this country, from what I understand, you'll find some of those people are very, very, very light-skinned, okay? And the thought is that's where it comes from. So this is who these people are up in here. They have married in with the Canaanites. And when we get up in Phoenicia, part of this now is what we call Lebanon. We hear the Bible talk about Tyre and Sidon, right? That's where that was at. That was the cities up in there where Tyre and Sidon was at. And it kind of covers it, I think. That's just a quick overview. And here's what it looks like, of course, after the conquest. You have the tribe of Judah here, okay? You have Simeon here. You have Ephraim here. You have Dan here. Here you have Jerusalem here. There's Ephraim. There's Gad. There's Reuben. Manasseh, Issachar, Zebulun, Naphtali, and Asher. And of course, look at Manasseh. They occupied a pretty good space on both the east and west side, didn't they? So, primarily, though, the history of the Israelite people is going to take place right in here, okay? In this area right in here. There's the Sea of Galilee up here. So, and that's kind of an overview to remind us what's going on, because as this lesson unfolds, and we get over into Joshua and Deuteronomy, you're going to see more and more of this mentioned. So you may see this again to kind of keep it fresh in our minds what's going on here. So really the bulk of these people are descendants of Jacob, aren't they? It's kind of interesting in what's not a descendant of Jacob. Looks like they're descendants of who? Cain. So, really one big family mix over there in that land. So, anyway, any of your brethren have any comment on that? And I'm going to move right along. We did talk about verse 14, and we covered that about the book of the War of the Lords, and I just read from what John wrote about Jesus' works, and we find this is true when we go back and look at this. And so I think we have a pretty good understanding of what these books and what these things are about as it mentions them. And so now, verses 17 and 18. Morgan, do you have that? Numbers 21, verses 17 and 18.
Then Israel sang the song, "Spring up, O well, all of you sing to it. The well the leaders sang, dug by the nation's nobles, by the lawgiver with their staves. And from the wilderness they went to Mattanah."
Okay, so here we have now Israel singing this song of rejoicing. And this is a song, and it goes like, "Spring up, O well, sing ye unto it. The princes digged the well, the nobles of the people digged it by the directions of the lawgiver with their staves." Now, that is a very interesting thought here, that the princesses and the lawgivers did the digging. Usually you don't find that when you have princesses and lawgivers, do you? Usually they're the ones saying, "Hey, Eric, you need to go dig a well," right? But they dug these wells. And how did they dig them? Did they use implements like shovels or hoes or whatever they had? No, they used their staves. And the picture that you're getting here is showing some sense of humility and humbleness, isn't it, among these leaders to dig that. So that's a song that they sang about getting water. And we know out there in this part of the arid desert where they were at, out in the Sinai area, that water's a big deal, isn't it? When you're out in the desert, that's one of the things that's missing, isn't it? So to have water That's a huge deal. So they were greatly appreciative that the princesses and the lawgivers had dug these wells. There was a thankful joy for the way God provided water for the people. The brooks of Ammon, and if you back up here a few verses, we talked about that. Seems to be where this is taking place, that if you back up here to around verses 12, 13, like that. I will give them water. Israel was trusting God, and God provided for them. And I think that's the lesson here in all this, isn't it? They went through a lot of distrust, didn't they? God would send the plagues, God would send the fiery serpents. They got into the golden calf. They got out there and grumbled and made Moses, he got upset with them and he struck the rock instead of speaking to it. But yes, there were periods of times when they were greatly appreciative of what God had done for them. But was it long lasting? Therein lies the dilemma, okay? And a lot of times we can see as we study this maybe some reflection in the lives of people today. Sometimes appreciation is short-lived, isn't it? And we forget, don't we? We forget. And that's something that we have to do. We have to be steadily reminded of things, don't we? I just popped in my mind about what the writer of Hebrews says in Hebrews chapter 2. Okay? So, this was kind of a problematic thing even in the time of the apostles, wasn't it? People have a tendency to forget, don't they? Notice what the writer here says. Therefore, we ought to give the most earnest heed to the things which we have heard, lest at any time we should let them what? Slip. We got one that's, and I don't think we talk about this enough or maybe mention it enough. Why would we let them slip? Well, maybe under the course of our daily lives, we wouldn't. But what do we have here that we often forget about that wants us to let them slip? Influence of the devil, isn't he? He's always throwing something out there, some kind of roadblock, some kind of stumbling block, some kind of pothole, hoping that we will stumble and fall and not get back up. He's hoping we'll let them things slip, So, and that's not unusual, when Peter was writing to the brethren there, what was one of the things that he said to them in 2 Peter chapter 3? What was he going to do? He says, this second epistle, brethren, I write now unto you, in both which I stir up your pure minds by the way of remembrance. So do we have a tendency to let things slip? Yeah. We do. We have a tendency to forget, don't we? But yet there are times in our lives when we're greatly appreciative. And hopefully as members of the church and Christians, we're appreciative all the time. But we have to be careful, don't we? Because we can let these things slip. Right now they're appreciative, right? They just went through the fiery serpent deal, right? Where the serpents bit them and they died. They had to look upon the prey. Well, now they're back appreciative. So this is what that song is about in verses 17 and 18. Verses 26 through 30. Eric, do you have that?
26.
Yeah. I skipped down through some of this because it's got all these little cities mentioned and things like that, and I'll comment on that in just a minute.
For Heshbon was the city of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of Moab, and had taken all his land from his hand as far as the Arnon. Therefore those who speak in Proverbs say, come to Heshbon, let it be built. Let the city of Sihon be repaired. For fire went out from Heshbon, a flame from the city of Sihon. It consumed Ar of Moab, the lords of the heights of the Arnon. Woe to you, Moab! You have perished, O people of Chemosh. He has given his sons as fugitives and his daughters into captivity to Sihon, king of the Amorites. Though we have shot at them, Heshbon has perished as far as Dibon. Then when he laid waste as far as Nophah, which reaches to Medeba.
Okay, what Eric just read, I know I skipped over a few verses here, 21 through 25. What that's getting into is some of the more detailed accounts of some of the smaller cities that we referred to on a map prior to last week. There's a lot of little towns and cities up in there, and things that they had gathered. And we're going to come back to this in Joshua and Deuteronomy, okay? And sometimes when you're dealing with so much history and so much richness in the history of Israel, sometimes you wonder, well, what do I need to leave out so I can cover a class time, and what do you put in? So you try not to condense the condensation to where it's condensed out of the condensation. Does that make sense? Now, Reed, I might can say that again, but I'm not going to try it, okay? Anyway, so that's why I went down through this. It's more the same where Sion, and we looked at that on the map, part of the Ammonites wouldn't let them pass through, just like Edom wouldn't, just like Moab wouldn't, so on and so forth. So we've already discussed a lot of that prior to this. So if you go out and look at this, it's amazing at how much time is spent in the book of Genesis, Exodus, and Numbers, and Leviticus. There are people that have dedicated their lives throughout centuries with books and volumes written nothing but about this history right here and trying to understand it. So it's real in depth. A lot of times the ruins and diggings that they find over there evolves around this right here, doesn't it? You know? Well, wait a minute, this is some of the pottery of the Moabites and the Amalekites and the spears and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes it is hard what to put in, what to leave out, especially when you're dealing with something that's so, and it's going to get more detailed, so, but we don't worry about that till we get there. So that's why I jumped down through that. But anyway, we find this song is the so-called Song of Heshbon. It's a very old poem apparently composed by the Amorites, if you read it, to celebrate Sion's defeat of Moab. It is probably inserted here to justify Israel's rights to the land. Now, is that unusual to refer to a poem or poet outside the realms of the Bible? No. Okay? We find that the Apostle Paul did the same thing, and I won't turn over when he was talking to Titus. What did he tell Titus about their own poets? He said the Grecians are always slow belly and slothful. Okay, their own poets he referred to. Okay, so it's not unusual to find something inserted that the people knew about to explain what God's trying to do. I think we do the same thing today. A lot of times we refer to outside writers of the Bible, don't we? When we're talking about things. You know, a lot of the commentaries and material that we use by historians are people that are not members of the church, aren't they? But when you look at what they've written and compare it to what is written in the Bible, it has a fit, doesn't it? It has a fit. So, doing the same thing here. So, this is what that's about. What seems certain, the defeat of Moab prepares the reader for the story of Balak and Balaam. Boy, this is going to be interesting when we get over to that. There's a lot of detail in that we don't often talk about. Moab was next, and the defeat seemed imminent. Thus Balak, king of Moab, wished to transfer the battle arena from the field of men to the realm of the gods. And that's why he brought Balaam in. Now, he brought Balaam in from a long way. You're going to find he brought Balaam in from Mesopotamia over in the area about where Abraham was from. So, this Balaam, he traveled a great distance. The king of Moab went to great trouble to find this sayer among the people to come over and ask to curse the children of Israel. And I don't want to get too far to that because it's real interesting at who Balaam actually is. Okay? So anyway, we'll get to that. But that's what that is. That's kind of preparing us and preparing the people what's going to happen to them in the conquest of Moab. And like I say, we probably get started on chapter 22. We probably won't get very far. Any of you brethren have any comments on that? Okay. The Moabites were called the people of Shishmosh because he was the idol they worshipped. And I think that's interesting because we find Shishmosh coming up very often amongst the children of Israel, even, we know that was one of the gods that even Solomon allowed his wives to build altars to. And Shishmosh, like a lot of those gods, was a fire god. He is thought to actually be a war god. What they would actually do, the Moabites would sacrifice to Shishmosh, who had the head like a man, a head like a cow, and arms like a man, and he sat on a throne. Okay, and the reason the arms are outstretched like this, Shishmosh is one of the fire gods they sacrificed their children to by fire. And Solomon allowed this. These people got involved early on with the Israelites. That was one of the condemnations about them turning to the gods of the, and I'll just use the generic term, Canaanite land, okay, was that. So that's who the Moabites were. They were worshippers of Shishmosh, okay. And we're going to find Shishmosh and Baal and all those gods mentioned over and over through the conquest as we go on. Okay, before we get to some of the teaching points, let's see, Isaac, would you read down maybe 31 through 35? Numbers 21.
Thus Israel lived in the land of the Amorites, and Moses sent to spy out Jazer. And they captured its villages and disposed the Amorites who were there. Then they turned and went up by the way to Bashan. And Og, the king of Bashan, came out against them, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. But the Lord said to Moses, do not fear him, for I have given him into your hand, and all his people in his land. And you shall do to him as you did to Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who lived at Heshbon. So they defeated him and his sons and all his people until he had no survivor left, and they possessed his land.
Okay, so this is just a quick snapshot of what finally took place based on, when you look back up, this poem, if you will, that was rehearsed to these people. So they did go in and they did take the land, and I'm going to kind of stop right there because we're going to come back to this on more than one occasion, okay? So let's look at some teaching points on this. Let's take a few minutes and look at this. Victory over the Canaanites. This chapter begins with the Israelites defeating the Canaanites at Hamath after seeking God's guidance and making a vow to him in Numbers 21, 1 through 3. And we went through that last week. This victory underscores the importance of seeking God's will and relying on his strength. Remember, the prior time when they went up there, what happened? They went up there on their own, didn't they? And God told Moses, don't go up there with them folks. They being hard-headed and stubborn. So they went up there, tried to go in, and what happened? They got defeated, didn't they? Some of them were even captured. So that just goes to show you that man in his own will a lot of times is defeated, isn't he? But if God's walking with them, and as long as they walk with God, could they be defeated by sin? No. And this is what this is painting us a picture of, really, how sin was defeated. This is a physical sense of sin. God said when they go into them lands to do what? Utterly do what? Destroy the people, the cattle, the goats, the sheep. Anything that sin has touched, you get rid of it. Does that have application today? Anything that sin touches, we need to get rid of it. Yeah, it's the same thing today. What happens if you leave just a little leaven laid out on the counter and you rolling bread? It's going to influence it, isn't it? You have to get rid of all of it, not just part of it. Well, I'm going to keep this part of it. I'm going to keep this. And this is what happened with Israel. They're going to get up in there, and this is how Shishmosh and Baal and all of them got intertwined with them, these false gods. They didn't get rid of them, did they? And so this is what happens when we don't get rid of sin. As long as we're doing what God said do, we can't be defeated. But what happens when we don't walk with God and we start walking in our own ways? A lot of heartache and problems start cropping up, doesn't it? Yeah. And we're going to have that anyway as far as being Christians, but it's kind of like the life of David and Solomon and other great characters in the Bible, even Moses. A lot of the problems they had was brought on by who? God or them? Them. Isn't that true today? A lot of our problems are brought on by us. Okay? You know? And David was a prime example of it. Look at Solomon and all his wisdom. You know, he knows better than a lot of that, married all them strange women. See, they were supposed to have many centuries earlier, Greg, destroyed all them folks and all them altars and stuff. But in their own wisdom, well, what's wrong with that? That's some pretty good folks down here. I don't think God really meant what he said on that. It doesn't make sense to me. Well, that's human reasoning. That's human injection, isn't it? And we have to be careful with that. We talked about the bronze serpent. When the Israelites grumble against God and Moses, God sends fiery serpents among them. In response to their repentance, God instructs Moses to make a bronze serpent, and those who look upon it are healed. Numbers 21, 4 through 9. This event foreshadows Christ's redemptive work on the cross, and we talked a whole lot about that. Journey in battles. The Israelites continue their journey facing various challenges and victories, including battles against Sihon and Og. Remember, we showed Sihon and Og and Amram. That was the divided kingdom of the Amorites up in that area there. Okay, so and this is where when they get up in all this, you get into more detail. This is actually in the area of the rim of where they're going to cross over the River Jordan and go into the heart of what would be the promised land and take Jericho. Okay. Throughout their journey, God provides for the Israelites' needs water from the well at Beer, Numbers 21, 6 through 18, reminding us of his faithfulness in providing for his people. Practical application. Well, you know, how about seek God's guidance? Like the Israelites, we should seek God's direction in our battles and challenges, trusting in his wisdom and his strengths. Remember we said as long as Israel done that, they couldn't be defeated, right? And that's what we need to do today. And that's the end of chapter 21. Any of you brethren have any comments on that? I know there's some stuff in there that I didn't go over, but we're going to catch that later. Now we're going to get into the real interesting story that we all know, but I don't know if we've ever looked at it in the detail that's given here about Balaam and Barak in Numbers chapter 22. Okay, Numbers chapter 22. What's this conversation going to look like? Balaam refuses Balak's first message. Balak's second obtains him. Angel would have slain him. And the donkey speaks. You know, very often, and I think I may have a lesson on that. I didn't go back and look and see from years back, but it's a shame when a donkey got better sense than a man, ain't it? And that's basically what you got here. There is no way that donkey was going to go around that angel, okay? It ain't happening, Jill, okay? Balak just couldn't see it, could he? But he did, didn't he? Anyway, so a very interesting story about Balaam and Balak and the angel and the donkey speaking. What does this depict? What is this about? Numbers 22 depicts an intriguing narrative featuring a Moabite king, a prophet, his donkey, and an angel. King Balak feared the Israelites seek the prophecy of Balaam, a man renowned for his blessings and cursings, okay? And we're going to talk about Balaam a little bit, who they thought he is as far as being a real prophet of God. He wasn't. He was more like a soothsayer type individual, okay? Supposedly, he was like Simon the sorcerer. You know, he had bewitched many people, so his fame was well known, okay, throughout. So we'll take a look at that. It's interesting how God used him, okay, to carry out his will. A story of full divine intervention, complex characters, miraculous events, unfolds that challenges our understanding of obedience, perception, and morality. Okay? So there's some strong points that's going to be depicted within this narrative. So who was this Balaam, from what we know? Balaam was a non-Israelite prophet and diviner who lived during the time of Moses and the Israelites' journey through the wilderness. He is known for his ability to bless and curse people, and his fame had spread throughout the land. Balaam was hired by Balak, the king of Moab, to put a curse on Israel. But we're going to find that is going to backfire on him. But he could only speak what God permitted and ended up pronouncing a blessing over Israel instead. Very interesting character, this Balaam. When you narrow it down, and I may have a map on that, this Peoria that you're going to find mentioned here is actually over there from about the area where Abraham's from, over in Mesopotamia, the land of Ur. Okay, so this is what's going on here. So this guy was a well-known individual. Okay. And it's kind of like maybe today, you know, we have a lot of people parading around under the guise of religion that claim they can do many wonderful works, right? And they have a mass following, don't they? You know, people send them money and fill coliseums with them and think they can do many wonderful works, don't they? You know, that was Simon the sorcerer too, wasn't it? He was like that. You know, he had bewitched the people into thinking he was someone great. You know? But you find now that we know through the advent of technology and things of that, and if you study these people, most all of us can probably do what a lot of these people do. All you got to do is study the demographics of a certain area. When people call in and say, hey, well, I got the demographic statistics will show certain aspects and characteristics of that locale, right? So if you know something about that, when somebody calls, you can pretty much guess, Daniel, and what they're doing and where they're at and what they're talking about, you know. So anyway, this is who Balaam is. Balak's fear and request, verses 1 through 7. Bobby, do you have that? Numbers 22, 1 through 7.
Then the children of Israel moved and camped in the plains of Moab on the side of the Jordan across from Jericho. Now Balak, son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. And Moab was exceedingly afraid of the people because they were many. And Moab was sick with dread because of the children of Israel. So Moab said to the elders of Midian, now this company will look up everything around us as an ox looks up the grass of the field. And Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of the Moabites at that time. Then he sent messengers to Balaam, the son of Beor, at Peor, which is near the river, in the land of the sons of his people, who called him, saying, look, a people has come from Egypt. See, they cover the face of the earth and are settling next to me. Therefore, please come at once. Curse this people, for they are too mighty for me. Perhaps I shall be able to defeat them and drive them out of the land. For I know that he whom you bless is blessed, and whom you cursed is cursed. So the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the diviner's feet in their hand, and they came to Balaam and spoke to him the words of Balak.
Okay, very interesting opening here, isn't it, about Moab recognized and could already see the power and strength of Israel, right? They could see it in the defeat of some of the Amorites, right? So the king of Moab was like, I better get some help with this thing. I don't know that I can defeat these people physically because it looks like they covered the whole earth. Can you imagine the sight of that? The children of Israel with 625,000 men of war that's above the age of 20. Normally it ran through somewhere about the age of 50 or 55. It's kind of like being a helper to Eleazar, Aaron's son, priest. The priest, that was the age at which a man became a priest, was age 20, and he usually served to about age 50 or 55. So anyway, we know there were 625,000 men of war, so that's going to put the children of Israel's number as a group of people well above 3 million, okay? Quite a sight to see, 3 million people plus marching towards your land. Imagine that would get anybody's attention. Plus to realize that they've already done some conquest, okay? They're coming. And the king of Moab, he recognized that, and I want you to notice that he sent this message over to Balaam. And it tells who Balaam is, who he's the son of, and where he's from. So anyway, when you look at that on the map, I may have that in there somewhere in this narrative. I don't remember. But anyway, it's a great distance. And notice what it says. It talks about sending what? The rewards of divination. And there's a tip-off right there, isn't it? So what was he recognized really as? A person that done divination, didn't he? Soothsayer. What do they call it sometimes? I know sometimes they refer to Job, but he was not a sage in the sense that they refer to him, okay? We know that. But this guy was some type of modern day sage that the people looked up to.
My Bible says diviner.
Huh?
My Bible says diviner.
Yeah, same thing, diviner, divination, it's all the same thing, yeah. So there's a tip-off right there that he didn't recognize him as a man of God, really, because this is a heathen king, right? Worshiping Shishmosh, a fire god, god of war. So what did he send him? Things that a diviner, if you will, would excel. Okay, so there's a tip-off already about Balaam. Okay, but God is going to use Balaam's own will against him. Okay, so anyway, it's going to be a very interesting story. Seeing the victory of the Israelites, King Balak of Moab felt threatened and formed an alliance with the Midianites. They sent elders to Balaam, a soothsayer in Peoria, with divination fees to invoke a curse on Israel. Notice divination fees. Isn't that what them folks always want? They always want a fee, don't they, Daniel? Huh? You see them you see a lot of times, well, how much you gonna leave right here? And I can't read your palm for you, Anyway, same thing. Peoria is an ancient city mentioned in the Bible, specifically in the book of Numbers. It's described as being located near the Euphrates River in Mesopotamia, which is modern-day Iraq, which we know that's where Abraham came from. Petor is known as the home of Balaam, a prophet who was summoned by Balak, the king of Moab, to curse the Israelites. And so that's who he is. I'm going to go ahead and touch on this. If you remember in the book of Revelation, chapter 2 and verse 14, notice what it said about Pergamos, okay? And this is an English Standard Version. But I have a few things against you. You have some there who hold to the teachings of Balaam, who taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the sons of Israel, so they might eat food sacrificed to idols and practice sexual immorality. So, hold to the teachings of Balaam. So what kind of prophet was he actually in reality? He was a worldly prophet, wasn't he? Really. He passed himself off as someone great. And so it's interesting that he's referred to in Revelation chapter 2 and verse 14. So I might stop right there. We're gonna have to get ready for the worship service, and we'll pick up there,